I grew up in the South, in a place with about as much exposure to art as maybe a desert has water. I've been a high school teacher for about 20 years, so that informs the work abundantly. You know, I made a decision 6 years ago, 8 years ago, that the transition from studio to classroom and vice versa would be seamless. So I would allow what happens in the classroom to inform the work. And I would start to use institutional relics or institutional objects that are common every day and allow those things to inform the work as well. And you know, art and education had this ability to reinvent themselves over time. You know, and to me they're synonymous. You can't separate the two. So I think, you know, the conversation now is the end of art. Well, and if that's true, then we're at the end of education as we've known it too. It's almost like when things reinvent themselves, then you get to redefine the rules, if there are any. And to me, like, that's the most interesting part about being a maker of things. Because I don't even like to call myself an artist. That's cliche, man. I'm a thinker. What's most interesting about this building too is the fecundity that's present, you know? Because there's such, you know, like, this is the spirit of intellectual openness here, you know, and there's thinkers, you know, and that's the beauty of it. You know, Pablo right next door, me and him have very similar interests, completely different approaches, but you know, I completely respect, you know, the work that he does. You know, I'm doing a piece at the Newark Museum. We're working on a piece at the Newark Museum where I'm doing a performance in the oldest schoolhouse in New Jersey. So it's an 18th century schoolhouse and nothing's changed, you know, internally. Like, they've kept it, you know, true to the time. So, you know, the curator asked me, you know, what would you do with the space? And I said, absolutely nothing, but I would bring some contemporary thought into the space. So, you know, the name of the piece is If I Could Give a Speech. So it'll be 20 of my students and myself, and I'll be in complete disguise. Because to me, it's more so about losing authorship. You know, I don't really care whether anyone knows it's me. So I'm in complete disguise, you know, they're in disguise too. And I speak for about 17 minutes. And I kind of juxtapose, you know, the history of, well, international thought with domesticated thought. You know, so it starts out by saying, you know, first I'd like to welcome everyone to the funeral of misinformation. And then it says, if I could give a speech, I wouldn't speak about the only 3 countries not colonized by Europeans. I wouldn't talk about China, Afghanistan, or Ethiopia, but what I would speak about. And then I would juxtapose that with current issues that these kids are faced with every day. You know, I'm not interested, like, I don't really care whether the kids that I teach ever produce a piece of artwork in their life. But I hope I've prepared them for life in the ability to think for themselves. Because, you know, I think we have this misconception that teachers are there to teach people how to think, but most people want to think like the teacher. You know, they're not there, they're there to develop their own way to see the world and themselves in it. You know, it has nothing to do with me. You know, once I create the dialogue, man, I sit down and just watch it flow. You know, because they learn much more from each other than they're ever going to learn from us.